we're going to talk about the quadratic formula. This is used with quadratic equations, and so hopefully you remember that quadratic equations are equations that have x squared, and also y, if it's in there, is single. It doesn't have a squared with it. So quadratic signifies to us that we have x squared. There are other types of equations that have x squared in them that are not quadratic. So x squared and either a 0 or something like that, or a y that does not have any other exponent is what it's for. So you may recognize this is called the standard form of a quadratic equation. You might recognize this form as something that we factor. And many quadratic equations can be solved by factoring. But some of them cannot. Some of them do not have beautiful roots or zeros. And so this is a time that you would need, or we're going to talk about times you would need to do the quadratic formula. So just for the record, the quadratic formula will always work. So even if you forget how to factor, you can use this. Okay? This is what it is. All right, this is the quadratic formula right here. So I'm going to embarrass myself for a minute for the sake of education and tell you the only way that I memorize this formula, which, by the way, you don't have to memorize for Algebra 1. It's on the formula sheet, is by singing it. So it goes to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And feel free to play that a million times, but don't share it with people because I have a terrible singing voice. Hopefully that helped you. All right, so here we go. You can see that these b's, a's, and c's all come from the standard form right here. So the number in front of x squared, the coefficient of x squared, is the number that we use everywhere you see an a. You substitute. The coefficient of the x term is b. So you can see you will substitute twice for b. And c is the constant term, and you'll see you'll substitute for that right there. So let's check it out. For me, I think it's super helpful to clarify. So we're going to write a, b, and c here so you can pull them from the formula. The coefficient of x squared is that implied 1. So a is 1. The coefficient of the x term is negative 5. Don't forget to bring the negative. The coefficient of the constant, not coefficient of the constant term is negative 36. Again, don't forget to bring that negative. Okay, now we're going to write the formula, because the more often that you write this formula, the more you will have it memorized. Okay, so here we go. We're going to substitute into this formula to figure out what x equals. X equals negative, and remember, when we substitute, we use parentheses. B is negative 5. Plus or minus the square root, again, b in parentheses is negative 5, minus 4. In parentheses, we're going to put a, which is 1. C is negative 36. Again, in parentheses, because we're substituting. All over 2 times a, which is 1. All right, now we're going to use the order of operations to simplify this expression. So, do we have any groups? Yes, we do. This is actually considered a group, all of this stuff under the radical. So that's what we're going to focus on simplifying first. So that minus negative 5 can hang out there in the front, plus or minus, and 2 times 1 right there. All right, in order to simplify this, we're going to use the order of operations. So we have exponents. Negative 5 squared is negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. All right, we still have some work to do inside those parentheses, or inside the radical. So the 25 is done, but now we're going to move on to multiply or divide. I'm going to multiply the whole thing across. -4 times 1 times 36, -36, equals 144 over 2 times 1, and we're going to keep on simplifying. Add and subtract. That would be 169 all over 2 times 1. And now we're going to keep simplifying. We actually do know the square root of 169 is 13. Okay. Minus -5 is +5. And 2 times 1 is 2. So this is kind of at the bottom. Now we actually have two different cases. We can do 5 plus 13 divided by 2, and we can do 5 minus 13 divided by 2. That's what that plus minus means. 5 plus 13 is 18 over 2, which equals 9. And 5 minus 13 is -8 over 2, which is -4. So the answers are that x equals +9 and -4. And I ran out of room, but you would write it like this. Okay. And one other thing, just to kind of show you, is that if this was a graph, and this is not going to be fully accurate, but it will give you an idea, the answers to this, the zeros, actually are on the graph. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the x-intercept, and 1, 2, 3, 4, negative. So you would have a parabola, something like this. Okay, that's what that draws. 9 and -4. All right, let's look at it again. This is going to be a little longer than 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. Okay, here we have a quadratic equation. We know that it's quadratic because we have x squared. So we need to determine a, b, and c. But we can't do that yet because you can see this is equal to 0, but ours is equal to 12. So we need to subtract 12 from both sides to get 0. 2x squared plus 7x minus 9 equals 0. I subtracted the 12 from 3 because those are constants. They don't have a variable, so they are like terms. Now we can determine a, b, and c. A is the coefficient of x squared, so 2. B is the coefficient of x, 7. C is the constant, -9. And now we're going to substitute them into this formula. So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Remember, I'm substituting everything in parentheses. All over 2a. Okay? And simplify. I'm going to simplify this, and I'm just going to kind of consolidate steps because I did this the super long order of operations way. I know because I've done a lot of math the order that I can simplify, so I'm going to model that. I know changing this to -7 isn't going to affect the rest of my problem. And I know doing this 4, 2 times 2 is 4, is also not going to affect the rest of the problem. Again, we want to start with the group. So here's our group in here, and we need to do the order of operations, meaning exponents first. 7 squared is 49, minus 4 times 2 times -9. Okay, now we're going to do 4 times 2 times -9. So negative and negative is going to be positive. 8 times 9 is 72. All right, negative 7 plus or minus. I'm going to add those together. So 9 plus 2 is 1, 8, 121 over 4. Okay, and hey, this is a nice one too. Negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 121, which is 11, over 4. And that is the point where we split off into 2. Negative 7 plus 11 over 4, and negative 7 minus 11 over 4. All right, negative 7 plus 11 is 4 over 4, which equals 1. Negative 7 minus 11 is negative 18 over 4, which does not go in evenly, so simplifies to negative 9 over 2. So the answers, negative 9 over 2, comma, 1. And again, if you were going to look at this on a graph, these would be where the zeros are. 1 and negative 9 over 2, which would be about negative 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half. And it would look something like that. All right, one more. This one is a quadratic equation because we have our x squared term. But interestingly, when the standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, we're kind of missing something. We have our x squared term, we have our constant, and it's equal to 0. But we're missing that middle term. So it might help for you to write it like this. 3x squared plus 0x minus 12 equals 0. All right, now we can determine a, b, and c. Go ahead and see if you can fill in a, b, and c. And so pause the video and then come back and check. Okay, you're back. A is 3, b is 0, c is negative 12. Because 3 is the coefficient of x squared, 0 is the coefficient of x, and negative 12 is a constant. We're going to use the quadratic formula to figure this out. So negative bx equals plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Hey, you're lucky you got a reprise. All right, let's substitute. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay. Again, we're going to start with this group, but I'm also going to simplify around the group the things that I can. Negative 0 is nothing. So we really have plus or minus the square root of something over 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. Again, exponents first. 0 squared is 0, so that's gone. And then we can just do this part. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 12 is positive 144. We know that the square root of 144 is 12 over 6. And this is the point at which you split into two pieces. We have positive 12 over 6 and negative 12 over 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2. So the answer is negative 2, 2. Please notice that when I'm writing these, I'm not using parentheses. I'm using brackets because these brackets indicate that this is a set. These are x values. And just one more time so that you can visualize it, these are the x-intercepts, the zeros. So negative 2 and positive 2. And you have a parabola, something like that. All right. I hope you have fun with the quadratic formula. See ya.